not going to look over there. It's distracting. It's called Katsura, and that's the name of the tree that grows in my backyard. I've been drawing you since I was a child. I still have my pictures of you, crayoned in green and brown. I know you from dreams, from past lives. I tell you private things. I live in the human world. I tend to the living and the dead. May I touch you? Your bark digs a road into my palm. Gold pollen glitters on my arms. The grass shies away from your roots, stretched across the soil like a dancer's thighs. Do you remember the first time you danced? You twirled a tiny seed helicopter headed earthward. The journey of a lifetime. Yours to grow in one place, mine to wander until I found you alone of all trees. Okay. This one also appeared under a new name, Wildfire. Already, we talk as if it happened to someone else, as if we were children again, in a perpetual state of bewilderment, our youth a shield against too much knowing. When I was 12, the new dark age, just a dust cloud on the horizon, I could not grasp the meaning in the shift of the clouds, nor the air's brutal tang. Had I known, what would I have done? Today the rain falls and the trees droop like a troop of worn-out performers after a final show, bowing as the director calls their names: red maple, yellow birch, liquid amber. You all have seen this famous painting, The Scream by Edvard Munch. This is my response to that. Sympathy for Edvard Munch. I want to wrap your head in velvet, take your hands in mine, place myself between you and whatever caused your eyes to flatten in panic. Why have your friends left you alone on this bridge? They stand stiff as chimneys below the red ribbon sky, an interval of space between you and them. Do they think they're safe? Once, just as I nosed my way into traffic, a car hit me broadside. I walked away unhurt, or so I thought. A door opened in my brain that day, and though I've tried to close it ever since, it still resists. Its hinges shrieking, like the sound I imagine coming from your mouth, your body a wave under the weight of it. On Halloween, there you were, hovering above an entourage of mermaids, ninjas, hobos, and fairies. In the flurry of little hands demanding candy, I wanted to hold yours for just a moment, feel the electricity that still lifts from the canvas all these years later, when you stood on the bridge over the fjord and felt a shock go through the whole world. Apparently, Edvard Munch painted many versions of that painting, and he said that he felt a shock go through that bridge. That's what made him paint the painting. Anyway, I just thought you guys, because there's a little craft note here, this poem was an exercise to write a poem using the following words: velvet, panic, chimneys, broadside, resist, and entourage. Pretty fun. So here's a couple of, I don't know, the older I get, the more I think about my childhood, which I blocked out for most of my life. And now it comes back to me in these odd little snippets. This is called Harvest. Digging potatoes in my garden, I thought of my mother as an 8-year-old, gleaning the war-blasted fields for a small bag of wormy tubers. Storing the potatoes in a dark, cool corner of the garage, I saw her, age 7, waiting in the cellar for the all-clear. Washing and boiling the potatoes, I thought of my mother at 13, thin legs and long braids, the day her mother died. Placing a bite of potato into my mouth, I remembered the look on her face whenever I didn't finish a meal. Scraping potato peels into the trash, I recalled that my mother's pockets always contained morsels of food. Planting potatoes, I felt her tucking me into bed, hands pulling the blankets together as I sank below a dream's dark soil. And that one goes with this one. This one's called Raw Material. raw in all definitions of the word raw. And this one was also published today. Raw material. As I turn my compost pile, I think of how my mother looked at anything unfinished on my plate. I wish that I could send food back in time, back to 1945 when hunger broke her down. But everything moves forward, and we all break down eventually. First, the flash of heat, then the slow decomposition. I thought this was a good idea, but they came out upside down. So. Oh well. I've driven Highway 101 so many times in my life, and there's this place in Santa Barbara which is just all lettuce fields, just nothing but lettuce fields. And this poem came out of driving that freeway. Driving past lettuce fields on Highway 101. A freeway is a dream where we move like magic beings, too fast to see the implications of lettuce rows, the men bent double, knives out. Eyes on the road, we lose ourselves counting signs, happy at small diversions, tumbling litter or glass shards sizzling in the sun. And if the stink of fertilizer blasts our bubble, we step on the gas, keep our gazes high above the men, lifting heads from the ground and tossing them onto the back of the truck they walk behind that never stops moving. Something to think about when you have your salad. Anybody want a pandemic poem? Everyone's like, I love these journals. I'm like, no more pandemic poems. No more pandemic poems. Well, here's your pandemic poem. Cubic zirconia. I'm fake sick, trying to fool my body into declaring war, a war I cannot see, only feel. I think most wars are like this. Once unleashed, they have their own ways of behaving that have nothing to do with us. We won't know when the worst is over, can't move until the all clear shatters the air, leaving us limp with relief. Or maybe my body is having a torrid affair with a lover who doesn't exist. Wouldn't be the first time. The racing heart, the prickling skin, the dazed feeling. It's all too real to be real, has that tang of the huckster, the con, the snake oil salesman. I'm alive, too alive, brain lit with a cheap glow, like the cubic zirconia rings at the jewelry counter, shining from their little velvet boxes with a ridiculous optimism you never see in real diamonds. Today my mouth tastes like a metal spoon, and it all smells slightly burnt. On little ghost feet, the dead tiny creatures scatter under my skin. Everything sparkles. And here's another memory from that fateful year of my life, 1971, 1972. At 11, Carole King sang, I feel the earth move under my feet. 3 Dog Night proclaimed, joy to the world. The house shook and shook. I thought I dreamed it. My father stopped coming home. Without him, afternoons slid into evenings, unmarked. No longer did everything in the house shift to make room for him. The rectangle next to the door where he used to put his briefcase. My mother's cheek unkissed. I played the radio as long and as loud as I wanted. My best friend stopped inviting me over to watch Dark Shadows and eat frosted snack cakes, both forbidden in my house, even though her own father had departed long ago. A place opened, a spot beside my mother that I stepped into. As the eldest child and only daughter, I became a partner, a sister wife, a listener. I felt too old for 6th grade. The kids on our block shied away from me like frightened horses. Every day I hummed and spun. Janice wailed about nothing left to lose. I didn't know she died before the song made it to my radio. I didn't know those words were some of the oldest ever sung. Everyone I know is in therapy, including me. Physical therapy. With one hand, she finds the lumps in my neck that popped up like button mushrooms the day my mother started packing after my father kicked the garbage cans over. I was 11, my siblings 9 and 2. We drove east for days away from him in that hot inland suburb where every summer smog shrouded the mountains, crossing a country whose size I was just beginning to fathom, through regions of the heart I was barely aware of. Comprehension loomed on the horizon, unavoidable as puberty. My father arriving to take us back west, my mother weeping, stacking pots and pans in the same boxes we used when we fled. Under my therapist's expert thumbs, the lumps in my neck throb, pressure building until they flatten, releasing a delicious flood of amnesia. But we both know the relief is temporary. Like the puffballs hiding in the lawn, memories wait for just the right moment to emerge, when the correct balance of heat and moisture balloons them from spores to fruiting bodies. Even now they gather strength. My therapist stretches her hands, ready. So Nancy has been doing Haibans, and I've been doing villanelles. All right, we're going to have a poem off here. I don't usually write in forms, but for some reason, as long as I don't have to rhyme them, the villanelles are really fun to do. So this one is called My Surgeries. I know that's a weird topic for a villanelle, but it just seemed to work. My surgeries divide evenly into one another. Siblings, they bookend 2 decades of my life. Each is a before, each is an after. How young I was, and then how old. Standing at a crossroad, I leaned forward and back. My surgeries divide evenly into one another, so small you hardly notice them. Perfectly balanced deletions. The first leads to the second. Each is a before, each is an after. Metabolic, they absorb and give off heat. They feed on what they remove. Multiplied, my surgeries divide evenly into one another. Destinations, they beckon and repulse. Borders where we cross and retreat. Each is a before, each is an after. I think I've recovered. I think I haven't. What's missing is still present. My surgeries divide evenly into one another. Each is a before, each is an after. It's a fun form. You can have all kinds of fun with it. Oh, and here's another form. The ABCDarian. This is a fun form, too. This one's called Unbeliever ABCDarian, and it's going to get published at the Whale Road Review next spring. Okay. Unbeliever ABCDarian. You know, the ABCDarian, every line starts with the letter of the alphabet. So from A to Z, so see if you can hear the words. Let's start with that letter of the alphabet. Aroma of the coming baptism. Sky a shining cross and Jesus at the door. The dry earth waits for what will fall, fat drops of grace. The shimmering horizon, a holy icon. I've been jealous, demanding kisses, ignoring my dreams. Lord, be with us. There's no mercy in a storm, and though I try, I'm not a believer. Only an outburst will do, an unsolvable problem to melt my resistance, quicken my pulse. The sky ripples. Everywhere I look, I see a signal grace. Leave me something for tomorrow, broken, unclean, something I can fix, a Virgin Mary mystery. I'm pregnant with words. The sky gathers itself in pre-ecstasy. My head's full of yellow light as a zephyr blows in. I should have called that one like Hurricane Fiona or something. Yes, X is the hardest one. So I cheated and I used ecstasy. This poem is called Where She Belongs, and it was written, Joan got me into this. This was the one written for, who's that guy at the Potomac Review? Oh, it's Mike Maggio. Is it Mike Maggio? Maggio, yeah. And you're supposed to get a newspaper article and something, an old poem, and then cut them up and reassemble them in a new poem. So I found a newspaper article about one of my favorite artists, Alice Neal, and this is what came out, Where She Belongs. I pace the denuded streets, counting the humans who scurry by. This was still during the pandemic. The denuded streets, counting the humans who scurry by, their little skull faces aglow. Mornings are light-struck and female, afternoons jumbled and loose. I try to remember why I decided to quit drinking. That last drink is like a tattoo. Its outline grows fainter with time, but never completely fades. The body is dazzling in its determination, in its daily reminders plucked from memory's most trafficked throughways. The hour before dinner, when wine blurred the coming night, then the blessed blackout of sleep. But this year I'm neither sleeping nor awake. The mirror reveals my sagging nudity. I'm quietly shocked. The body's deterioration, a roadmap of scars and lovers. No cameras click, although I feel the whole world watching. Once pregnant, I was cajoled into posing, my figure distorted and malleable. Never before had I felt so vigilant, so tenacious, my eyes ablaze with coming motherhood. Now, excavation is my purpose. Instead of drinking, I dig. I'm learning to keep my spine straight, but it's not easy. My world, fenced in and square-edged, is still gentle. I don't think about what's past, present, or oncoming. No matter what, people come first. And people come first is something Alice Neal always said. That's the title of an exhibition in New York City of her paintings. People come first. It's amazing what you can do with a newspaper article. And this is a poem I wrote. What's this one? Oh, another pandemic poem, just because we're all here and, This is called Dog by Dog. In those early days, we'd give each other a wide berth, veering away as we turned our heads in opposite directions, exquisitely aware of our breath's potential harm. Sometimes we said, hey there, or hi, but mostly just nodded. My thoughts pinged. Should I plant an apricot tree? Will my brother recover? Is my son safe? I took to counting the people I'd see while out walking the dog. 8, 12, 17, 20 was a good day. I'd come home smiling, unleash the dog, and yell to my husband, 20 people, 15 dogs. As the months wore on, I saw fewer people on my walks. My counts dwindled, 15, 10, 5, a dog or two. One day I saw no one. Even though they were mostly strangers, I missed them like family, those people I'd crossed the street to avoid and their dogs, shepherds, pit bulls, snarly little terriers, all traveling this suite of streets set down by a developer 30 years ago. The world was emptying, neighborhood by neighborhood, person by person, dog by dog. Oh, yeah, this one. I really can't explain this poem. It's called Life in the Anthropocene, which is pretty hard to explain anyway, because we're all living in the Anthropocene, and people that come thousands of years later will say, those people in the Anthropocene, they did this and this and this. So I hope they find this poem. You opened your arms and said, as long as we're together, whatever tore between us, we'd stitch it up. I thought words were solutions. I thought problems existed to be solved. Repeated enough times, words lose energy. It's as if we're asleep at sea, blind to the beacon that sweeps the horizon. We ignore the glacier calving in the distance, though every wave tries to warn us, and every gull song throbs with the knowledge. This is an essay I wrote about 3 years ago, a couple years after I moved to Eugene, and I went and visited a waterfall. It's called Praying by Ear. 1. An immense sound between a roar and a hiss seems to come from all around. Being near so much water, thousands of gallons per second plunging from the edge of a cliff, makes me dizzy. The waterfall's presence is wild and anarchic, a million faucets turned on full blast. I haven't seen a waterfall in years in which life delivered a series of blows in quick succession. My father was found dead after having gone missing near the Olympic National Forest. My husband was laid off from his job. Our son was diagnosed with a serious mental illness, and my mother-in-law died from Alzheimer's and cancer. This all happened about 14 months. I had no preparation, no guidance, and no plan for those days that shook what little faith I had. Reeling from crisis to crisis, I prayed a lot during those years, even though I'm not in any way religious. Desperate and unimaginative, my prayers always started with the word, please. Please help me get through this, I said to no one in particular. Please give me strength. Please. I did not grow up around waterfalls. I grew up in the deserts and near deserts of Southern California. Yucca Valley, San Bernardino, and Los Angeles. In San Bernardino, our next-door neighbors were Pentecostal. Over the backyard fence, I often heard their voices in high-pitched glossolalia. Even though my family attended no church, I understood that the neighbors were praying. In early autumn, I was having coffee with some people I just met from the East Coast when one of them mentioned a nearby waterfall. "Have you seen this place?" he asked, peering at me over his cafe Americano. I shook my head, more than a little embarrassed. I'd lived in Eugene, Oregon for over 2 years and not yet visited a single one of the numerous nearby waterfalls. "Well," he said, "you can walk behind this waterfall." 2. The waterfall's pure extravagance is almost too much for me to bear. So much water, so fast, so loud. My shoes slip on the wet path behind the waterfall as I stare at it hard. My eyes pick out individual drops and follow them into the pool, which is so clear I can see moss-covered boulders far below the surface. For once, I don't think about what I am about to do next. I simply stand, watching the giant curtain of water ripple in front of me. A group of hikers passes me on the trail, glancing curiously over their shoulders. I must look ridiculous, head bobbing up and down as my eyes follow the drops from the top of the waterfall down to the pool and back. This is not the first time the waterfall has embarrassed me. Even though now I live in water-rich Western Oregon, I'm still that kid from the desert. The anxiety of drought will never leave me. When I see people wasting water, someone leaving a faucet running while brushing their teeth, say, my throat constricts. I start praying, repeating please under my breath. My son stands next to me, gazing at the waterfall. Now in his late 20s and a survivor of those turbulent years, he is learning how to live independently as a person with a disability. He recently discovered the power of chant to help calm and focus his mind, and started chanting at a local church. After a few weeks, a small group of men joined him. The group thrives on spontaneity. No one signs up in advance, and there are no rehearsals. My son chooses passages from the Psalms, makes copies the night before, and hands them out to whomever shows up the next day. 3. Chant is not song or speech. It's both and neither. It has no rhythm, key, or harmony. It possesses the power to calm anxiety, increase positive energy, and focus the mind. When I hear my son chanting at home, I stop what I'm doing and just listen. A small, hardy group, the men who attend my son's chanting sessions, are well past middle age. They accept the copies of the Psalms he hands them, bow their heads, and wait for the opening note. Even though their voices waver, rarely achieving unison, they don't seem in the least bit self-conscious. Something about chanting with other men allows them to open their hearts, to ask for help, to say please, in a way men usually don't. Chant notation is called neumes. The earliest notation, from the 9th century, shows neumes written without staff lines above Latin text. The notes seem to drizzle down the page like drops of water. The hikers pass by again, this time from the opposite direction. As before, they stare at me. I wonder if I should pray to the waterfall as if it were a god, but all that comes to mind is the word that started so many of my other prayers, please. I stop wondering what I should do and just listen. Thank you so much for listening.